Hey, what's up YouTube? It's Diaphone. I've been playing a ton of Melty, but I think it's a great game, and I want to share some of the tips that I've picked up and that I noticed other players not doing in order for you to win more. So let's get started. The first thing I want to touch upon is meter management, and it can be a little intimidating because there's 2 meters, but it's actually quite simple. And I'll give you some tips in order to optimize your usage. The one thing that you have to notice when you start is that you start with full moon gauge. That's the gauge at the top left, and you build moon gauge over time. So because you already have full moon gauge, you want to make sure you use some of it to not let the extra moon gauge that you have built go to waste. So how can you use that moon gauge? Well, for some characters, you might have a really good move to throw out neutral. So for example, Saber has this move, which is just crazy. It's super fast, it's safe on block, and on hit, you get like 3k damage, right? And you can do it from like up here. It's unreactable. It's just really, really strong. The other place I recommend you use your moon gauge start of the round is, let's say you get knocked down, activate moon drive. And moon drive is so strong on defense because you get basically a quick second to react to something, and then you start like a guessing game, which is typically in your favor because when you're in moon drive, all your moves have armor. So a really strong strategy with Saber, for example, is I activate moon drive and then I do this move. And unless they guess right by shielding it or make it whiff, they're either forced to block, and on hit, you get like crap ton of damage, right? And if they happen to press, this happens, which is pretty bad, right? Yeah, the only way they can hard call this out is just by using shield, which is really risky. Being able to get out of pressure in situations like that is really strong, and it forces the opponent to back off or play a rock, paper, scissors game that's not in their favor. So make sure you're using that on defense. It's really good, and figure out what the best moon skill to use is after you activate. The other thing you should do is your magic circuit bar on the bottom. Make sure you're using it. You never want to be at 3 bars fully because, again, you're constantly building meter through the match and you want to optimize that meter usage, right? I'll see some people literally just sit on 3 bars the whole match and it just doesn't do anything. So how can you use this bar? Well, a lot of characters have like a special move they can just kind of throw out, just like a moon gauge skill, right? So for example, Saber, she can cancel into this 2-2C. That's +8 on block, and then you can get a mix-up off of that. Pretty cheap. Other characters have some moves that are really good for neutral. Other characters have some that they can end their combo with in order to get better Oki. Some characters have moves that they can use some pressure. The one thing I would recommend is make sure you use heat as well, and try to save 1 bar for heat, because when you have 0 bar, you can't use heat. That happens, right? So make sure you use heat. It's really good. Try to optimize your heat usage as well. So when you're full health, it doesn't really make sense to heat, because when you're when you're in heat, you recover health. So take for example, start of the round, you get hit by a combo, right? You're only missing that much health. So when you activate heat, you stop getting extra health back. So you want to try to activate heat when you're low on health. But one caveat I would say to that is if it's the first round and you're really low on health and there's a wide margin of health difference between you and the opponent, don't waste all your meter. Meter is such a valuable resource. It carries over from round to round. So make sure to keep your meter. So for example, I find this really common. Here's an example of me on stream. Playing the CL player, really strong. Mind the 2 diaphones. And you see the health difference, right? I have about at least a 50% health lead. I also have, 2 bars and whatnot. The CL has full moon gauge, right? So she should have been using that moon gauge earlier in the round. Most likely the first knockdown she took, she should activate moon gauge, or she should have been using some of the moon skills as the round goes on. But instead she decides to activate heat. It gets baited out and you die. And now you have no bar for the next match, right? So optimizing that meter uses, if she used the meter earlier in the round, it wouldn't have that close of health difference. And then you could take the risk of using heat up or using moon towards the end of the first round because the health difference is closer. All right, so let's talk about shield more. Shield is really strong, as you guys probably know. There's a few different situations you want to use it, right? You can use it on wake up, of course. I think another place to use it is like during pressure. So a lot of characters will have these charge moves that you can react to with shield. You can also just mash it. It's pretty easy to mash during pressure in case you're worried. The other place I recommend doing it is like an anti-air, right? So you'll see some people, they'll change their pressure up like this, and then they'll go in for like an air dash, or they'll go in for a jump in. It's really hard to beat these jump-ins. You could do it with 3C. I find it tough to do on reaction because like it doesn't have info on the first frame and you have to press a forward input, but shield is super easy. And you get a ton of damage from this, right? So try to use this as an anti-air as well. If you guess correctly, it's way in your favor. Make sure you mix up your follow-ups. That's pretty self-explanatory. Obviously, there's the rock, paper, scissors situation where one follow-up beats the other. The one thing I don't see people doing is make sure you use the BC follow-up, right? Especially if you don't know how to use your moon gauge, the BC follow-up costs moon gauge, but it's also your strongest follow-up, right? You get the most damage from it and it's the hardest to punish, so use that more. And if your opponent's shielding too much, what do you do, right? Well, you can obviously bait it out. I think empty jumping is pretty good. You could just empty jump and block and then see if they shield. If they're doing a lot in wake up, you know, for Saber, like if I can't get a cross up or something like that, I either go for a high or a low. Don't meaty them with like a 5A or a 2B because that loses to both shields, right? Make sure you're either doing a low or an overhead. A couple other tips, make sure you use your mobility. I played like 100 games and I didn't realize you can double jump and then you can still air dash. That's really uncommon for anime games. I know Guilty Gear doesn't have anything like that unless you're Chip. Super jump is also really good. You see how it kind of takes you up. And then you can still backdash after that, so right? So using that air mobility is really strong. The other thing I'd recommend is use an air dash macro. It's bound to AB. It's a little different than Guilty Gear or other air dash macro games where you actually have to hold the direction in order to air dash. So if you just neutral AB, you don't get an air dash. It takes a little getting used to, but still, it's way more consistent. Getting this instant air dash is like super free if you use the air dash macro, but sometimes if you just press forward, you might not get it on the first frame. So make sure you're using the air dash macro. Makes your life way more consistent. The other mobility thing I recommend you doing is backdash. Backdash is really good. It has more info frames than most backdashes in other games, so even just doing a wake up can be really powerful. And even just doing neutral, just to back up a little bit. Air backdash is good as well. You can just kind of control space, wait for them to come in. The point is, make sure you use all your mobility options. If you only stick to 1 or 2 mobility options, you'll get very predictable and then your opponent can take advantage. So from the basics of what you should lab or what you should work to improve first, I recommend practicing a basic combo and practicing your basic knockdown situation. So I'll show you an example of that. When I first started playing Saber, this is what I would do. So we got 2.3k damage, and then I'd go for like a meaty low or something. And then oftentimes I would just get hit out of the meaty low. So now I do something like this. So you see two things, right? I got about 600, 700 more damage, and I got a way better mix-up, right? That's a safe jump. It crosses up, so it can eat like shield inputs, it can eat DP inputs. And then there's also like other layers I can do too. If they start shielding, I can go like this, and I can go back, and then that beats their shield. Try to figure out what you want to do on knockdown, because once I started implementing that, my win rate went like crazy high. I do want to say, make sure you keep it basic. You don't need to practice the optimal combos. You know, Saber can do like way more damage if you do something like this. You see that does more damage. I actually did like 500 more damage, but keep in mind my starter was way better, so it does a little bit more damage, but it's way harder. I dropped it a ton of times recording that, so make sure you stick to the basic combos. You're also like, it's way more important to get your game sense and understand how to play versus going for the super optimal combos. The amount of investment it takes to get the super optimal combos in match is not worth it compared to everything else, such as the stuff in this video that you can implement and improve faster. And the most important tip, make sure you have fun. You know, a lot of people forget this. They think, you know, finding it, like they kind of get stuck in the vortex of I just want to improve, I just want to improve. But make sure you have fun. Improving is way easier when you have fun. You start to learn more and you're more likely to stick with the game. So figure out what having fun in fighting games means to you. Does that mean playing a new character? Does that mean, you know, just labbing up stuff and training mode? Does that mean only playing with your friends? Does that mean watching the game more than playing the game? Figure it out for yourself. When you figure out that, you're more likely to improve by sticking to those things that you like. At advanced levels, you could argue that there's stuff like you want to look at your replays and that sort of thing, but I don't really recommend that for beginner players. Again, your goal is just to get as good as quickly as possible and to enjoy it. So make sure you have fun. Anyways, guys, if you liked the video, consider like, sharing, and subscribing. I'm guessing you made it this far for a reason. There's going to be other videos like this, so consider subscribing to catch those videos in the future. Also, I happen to stream on Twitch, typically Wednesdays and Fridays, but I'm streaming a lot more Melty Blood, so you'll probably catch me at some different times. So consider checking me out there. Links in the description below. Anyways, thanks for watching. If you have any additional tips for beginners, please leave them in the comments below. Thanks, and have a great day.